This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live.
If you're a coffee or tea enthusiast, or you know one, or you have someone in your life that is that impossible person to buy an amazing gift for, you need a Final Press. FinalPressCo.com/NGL. That's Final, FinalPressCo.com/NGL. It is the beautiful combination of a French press meets a Keurig Nespresso. It fits in your pocket, your purse, your backpack. You can take it with you camping. You can take it to the office. You can leave one in your kitchen. It's not even a game changer. It's a galaxy shifter between the coffee or the tea you've been drinking and the coffee or tea that you wished you'd been drinking. It's easy to clean. It is durable. It is absolutely amazing. And we're getting it to you on sale. You get 10% off when you put in the NGL code in the checkout. FinalPressCo.com/NGL. You will thank me later.
Welcome back to the North Georgia Life Podcast. It is Jake, your host. This is the first episode published of 2025, and you are correct. I am horrendously behind on podcast stuff, so I apologize. It has been the busiest last calendar year of my adult life, which is saying a lot because I take like one nap a year, and that's usually when I'm sick or just utterly exhausted. But we just finished building our house. I was a general contractor on that, on top of our day-night weekend job in real estate, and then being a dad, doing the podcast, being a husband, like all those things. It's just been a lot. Adulthood is literally the reason that they created the expression "this too much." That is adulthood. If we knew what was ahead of us in adulthood, every single one of us would stay in college for like 10 to 15 years. I digress. Today's episode, we recorded this actually about almost a year ago, and we held off because we were a little bit too close to the event dates. We're talking with Jason Myers, who's the area director for the FCA All-Abilities Camp, which is held every spring, typically in April. And some of you may be familiar with the organization FCA, but I want to say if the FCA component, the fact that it's a Christian organization, you just kind of like in general tune out-ish a little bit to stuff like that, there is something for you on this episode because just Jason's story, like his health journey, his family's story, just like some of the life, health, genetics stuff that we talk about, there is something for everyone in at least that part of the story. But if you have anyone in your life, maybe you've got someone with special needs in your family, or maybe you know someone, a coworker, whatever. Even if FCA is not kind of in their wheelhouse in terms of their day-to-day, their lifestyle, just their belief system, whatever. One of the most helpful things is if you've listened to past episodes. So we have an 8-year-old who's on the autism spectrum, and it is hard to wrap your mind around until you've been in that space. That the most helpful people in your life, teachers are great, therapists are great, all these people are great. But the most helpful resources in your life are other families of special needs kids or, caretakers, parents. And this is an environment which is very unique, which gives you an opportunity to be around families that are going through similar stuff in life. This is a resource that FCA recognized, like, there is a growing population of people who are both woefully underserved in terms of resources for them, and there's such a heavy burden that most of the time they're just too overwhelmed to even raise their hand and just ask for help. Like, where do you get help? What we've gotten and that we've seen is from other families that are in the special needs world. And like, when do you have time to connect with those people? Almost never. You're barely treading water, keeping your head above, the surface. And this is an environment where they give you 2 days that the parents know they've got great help, caretakers, buddies, staff for taking care of their kids. And the parents just get some time to connect, build a couple of new friendships, share stories, like just dare we say have a minute to yourself. And so if the faith component is not your, is not in your wheelhouse right now, just go for the connection. Share this with people who need the connection with other families, other parents that are in that same world, that they can help each other. Because sometimes it's just nice to have people who get it, because if you're in this population, it's impossible for people to really get it unless this is the world they live in. FCA does a phenomenal job with pretty much every event they put on. This is no exception. So as we get started in the episode, I'll just share, and I didn't share this on the episode, just honestly because it's hard for me to put into words this life experience, but it was so impactful. We went to it was just an evening event. So there is a family, Jay and Catherine Wolf. Some of you may have heard of them. The short story is on them is Jay was an attorney, Catherine was a model. They had this amazing life, and then Catherine had a tremendous stroke and basically had to relearn everything as an adult. I won't go into their whole story, but out of that pain and suffering and life crisis that they went through, they kind of moved into the nonprofit space. They have a camp called Hope Heals, and golly, this is why I didn't talk about it in the episode, because I can't even get into this memory without it getting me emotional. But they had a one night thing that we went to a couple years ago in Atlanta, and as they usher the families in, the kids that are in the people who are in the special needs world, they have an opportunity. If you've ever seen any footage of Tim Tebow's event, where they just had this row of people who are like lining the runway into the event, that are just clapping and cheering and welcoming the special needs participants. And we went to the Hope Heals thing down in Atlanta, and this is a few years ago, and went in, and on both sides of their little corridor, there were I don't know, probably 100 people with white pom-poms just welcoming, cheering. I mean, it took every ounce of me to not just fall on the ground and sob like a baby. I was holding my son's hand. He was taking it in, but wasn't really phasing him. But our kids in the special needs world, like, they're not going to probably be on the homecoming float. They're not going to be running, the first one out of the tunnel on Friday Night Lights. And to have anyone that would put together something that would welcome our child and others like us with no qualification whatsoever to a free thing, just to be there to encourage us. It was one of the most moving things. As you can tell, this is, I don't know, if it was probably 4 years ago now. It ruins me every time I think about it. So if you're a volunteer for anything like this, just know there's thousands of me like me that may never get a chance to say thank you, but we thank you. And if you're a parent, caregiver, coworker, know somebody who is in the special needs world, you need to forward this episode to them and get them connected to this camp. If nothing else, it is 2 days out of the calendar year where they can connect with people who understand the world they live in. And I think you're going to be incredibly encouraged by Jason's story that he shares and how he got to where he's at with the FCA All-Abilities Camp. So you know how to find us on Facebook, Instagram, North Georgia Life Podcast at gmail.com if you've got suggestions on future episodes. And if we can be any help to you, we would love to be. Welcome back to the North Georgia Life Podcast. As Jake, your host. Today we've got a really unique episode that if this is not something that is pertinent and kind of hits you in life today, I can pretty much guarantee somewhere in the next calendar year, you will come across people that you will want to connect with this episode and the resource we're going to share here. So we are with Jason Myers with FCA, and most people in Georgia have heard of FCA. Maybe your kids got involved with FCA in their school age years, but this is a specific facet of FCA, specific role that he's in relative to, we call it kids with all abilities, and really not just kids, some the adult population as well. And we had this on the podcast because there's really not a resource quite like this in the North Georgia area. And so, Jason, thank you for your time. Thank you for making the drive.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. So typically we start with kind of where you came from, but for the sake of the audience, your voice is a little different than mine.
Yes.
So
I tell people I'm from Georgia.
Give us a little background on that.
Exactly. Well, my family, I say we were blessed with the opportunity to trust in Jesus Christ a little more because we have a disease in our family. It's hereditary. It's called ataxia. It's a neurological disease. It's passed down, obviously, generation through generation. My grandmother died at age 58 of it. My dad died at age 62 of it. Sisters have it. Just the family, that's what we deal with. I used to play sports. I felt like I was pretty decent at it. So I had speed and all this. So now I have trouble walking. I have trouble talking. My mind is working, so some people say okay, but my motor skills are slowing down. And so that's where my speech comes in and things like that, is those things are slowing down. Those things happened to my grandmother, my dad, my aunts and all. Our voices slow down, our bodies slow down, but our minds still work.
So growing up as a kid, odds are you probably had it, but there weren't any symptoms?
Right. Because I was born with your gene. Obviously, with your parents, you have 50-50 shot of contracting the disease or having the gene. I was blessed with your gene. So it's allowed me, through the ministry of FCA, to share my story.
About what age did it start kind of showing itself?
I coached baseball for 10 years and I coached softball for 8. So that made up my 18 years of teaching and coaching. Around age 30, it did show up that I realized I was actually showing my third baseman how to field and make his feet and all, and I got tripped and couldn't throw the ball like I thought I could. And so I started realizing, hey, it might be here. And it wasn't until like 2005 that I get tested. They developed blood work to be able to test for the disease.
So your first 30 years, anybody on the outside looking in, you're just a normal guy.
I'm a normal guy.
And then one day you're trying to throw with your third baseman, and you're like,
this is not happening.
My arm didn't, the ball didn't slip.
I thought it was age at first because I've heard stories like that. And then I started realizing, hey, this is in my family, something I might want to look into.
And you're how old now?
I am now 48 years old.
48, okay.
So I've been seeing signs for the past 18 years.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation and information. And, I think for everybody listening, what a great perspective to have, that there's some things we can do things about and some things we can't.
That's right.
And so much of life is really about how you look at what you're dealt and how you handle it. Oddly enough, it was this morning, I was sharing a story with a men's group that meets once a month, and we're kind of talking through, what's kind of your highlight from the last month. And most of the time it's people sharing things they got to do with their kids. We just had spring break, so a lot of people were just making memories over spring break with their families. Right. And mine was twofold. One is not really pertinent to this, but the other one was I found an old like original Dale Carnegie book. So the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, which that whole origin of how he came about to write that book is an amazing story by itself. But this was a different book. It's about worrying. And so a lot of the book is going through different examples and stories from different people about how they overcame worrying. And there was a story that he shared, and I'll butcher some of the details, but there's a book called I Wanted to See, and the author is Borghild Dahl, and she's clearly, it's not Jane Doe. she is from somewhere probably other than Georgia, but Borghild Dahl was effectively blind except for this like pinhole vision she had out of one eye. And so she, as a kid, she describes, wanting to play games and she couldn't see, like playing hopscotch, things like that, couldn't see. And so she would get on the ground and try to memorize from that little pinhole vision where the hopscotch things were so that she could actually play from memory with her friends. And fast forward.
Learning how to adapt. So fast forward, at some point in her adult life, there's a surgery that's available that significantly expands her vision. She doesn't have like 20/20 vision, right, but she goes from, that one kind of pinhole vision that she's able to see. If you imagine just wearing blinders and then somebody pokes, a small hole out of that, and that is your only vantage point for seeing the world. And now she's able to see far better, not perfectly, but far better. And the story that he shares, Dale Carnegie shares in this book, is she's doing dishes one day and just stops doing dishes and lifts her hands up. Her hands are covered in suds, and she's looking at her hands covered in bubbles, and she's just marveling at the rainbow, wow, going through all those bubbles, having never been able to see that. And I shared that with the group, and I'm like, there's a ton of people have their hands in the same sink of suds, and they are cussing someone because they're sitting there doing right, dishes, and she's doing the same dishes, and she is just having this marveling moment of, I can see the rainbows in the bubbles that are on my hands. And so reframing the perspective of not the why not me, but like the why, like you said, right, seeing it as a blessing of like, we have been given this unique perspective that a lot of people wish they could have. And so what a great way to start the conversation. Is your family from Georgia? They're originally, my dad's side is from North Carolina, and they moved around because my grandfather was in the Navy, and so they've all been around, like, so they got stationed when my dad was growing up around Warner Robins Air Force Base, and he got stationed near there, so it's where my dad was born. So they were raised around Macon, and so that's how we ended up here.
Okay. And when did you get involved with the FCA? Were you involved growing up in school?
And that's what's such an amazing story is Mike Osmer, who is my metro area director. He was my middle school basketball coach, heavily involved in FCA, would share about FCA with us over and over. And he ended up being our coach. So I grew up through middle school and high school in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, involved, obviously being an athlete and stuff, but learning that it was more than just for athletes, and that's what we're seeing now. And I just thank him for introducing me to that. And actually, when I left teaching and coaching, he was the one that called and said, hey, God's placed you on my heart. You really need to consider about working for FCA. And I said, you're crazy, man.
And that was about what age?
That was 2017.
Okay.
So, yeah, not that long ago.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to be thinking about it and praying about it. And I said, you're crazy. There's no way y'all raise your own support and do all that stuff. There's no way I want to be a part of that. Ministry is far greater than a lot of people realize, and that's not for me. And God worked it out where I came on staff and just have enjoyed this time. These last 5 years have definitely been heaven sent.
What was that like in that conversation that he reached out to you? Was it specific to what you're doing now?
Well, when God laid on my heart to resign, and so I was coach softball. Our team in Georgia, the big thing is to reach Columbus in the high school softball. And so my team was doing that. And so I felt like things were going well, and I was just laid on my heart to resign. And so I did what I thought was right and going around interviewing for jobs, looking for teaching and coaching jobs. Nothing was right. And he just called and said, hey, think about the FCA.
And this was, you're maybe around 40-ish?
Yes,
then?
yes.
Okay. So you joined FCA. Was it in the role that you currently have?
It is not. When we originally talked about it, it was, let's bring you on and you deal with the coaches ministry in the Broad River area, which we, as Franklin County, Hart County, Madison County, Elbert County, and Oglethorpe County. And so it's like, just concentrate on coaches. Well, in doing those Bible studies with a group of coaches, I fell in love with the Franklin County people. And that's just where God had led me. So I became a representative in Franklin, and that was my job until these last 2 years. Because of my disease, I can't travel as much, going as much day to day. So through FCA, I get to do supervising role and the director role now. And so I can focus on broader things more than just one county.
Let's transition to kind of what that is, what that looks like.
Yes.
So FCA started a camp in the North Georgia area. What area?
It's Madison County.
Madison County.
It is the North Georgia. Well, we labeled it as the Georgia. It is the Georgia All-Abilities Camp.
We're spoiled because it's close to the North Georgia market.
That's right.
Is it south of Athens? Where's
just north of Athens?
Just north of Athens.
Maybe 15 miles northeast.
And tell us about the camp that you're helping facilitate for really not just families in Georgia, but I think you said that you had people coming from Florida.
Yeah, Tallahassee's coming up this year for camp.
Tell us about the kind of the big picture of, we call it the FCA All-Abilities Camp.
Right.
What that is, how that got started, who it's for, just...
Well, FCA had unveiled to us that ministry is growing and changing. I grew up and being used to FCA on campus. And so now, because FCA sport is what it's called, it's growing beyond that. Like league sports, league teams, and camps, other. One of the things we have is FCA Outdoors. It's just focusing more on the fishing and hunting and aspects of that area, so people concentrate on that. We have FCA Motocross, things like that are growing. And so under this pillar, Mike and I were at a international conference that FCA has, and they unveiled this camp because there was a man who had a daughter with special needs, and he would watch her and see that she really wanted to participate but couldn't, because the abilities levels were a little different or whatever. So he thought, why can't I create a camp for her and her community? And so he started an All-Abilities Camp in Ohio. And so they filmed that and showed us at the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Mike and I looked at each other and were like, we've got to do this in Georgia. We've got to bring this back. So through FCA, I got to contact the guy who ran the camp in Ohio and myself. There's another director in the Oconee area named Jack Murray. He has a son with cerebral palsy. So I reached out and called them. My wife is Wendy Myers, and my daughter, Cara Grace, who works at a place for special needs in Athens. They all traveled to Ohio with me to watch this camp. And it wasn't 5 minutes into the camp I realized I want this back in Georgia. And so last year, we like to say, for the first time in the history of the world, we got to have a Georgia All-Abilities Camp. And what the camp allows is kids with all kinds of cognitive and physical abilities to come and participate in our stations. And so these stations, football, baseball, softball, basketball, fitness, all those things they can participate in at their speed and just experience what the FCA camp's all about.
And I think I remember you telling me on the phone last week, I can't remember when we talked, you have, it sounds like a ton of volunteers.
Yes, last year we had 190.
For families who, have someone who's in some sort of special needs, like you said, cognitive, physical disability, both, what does the camp look like for their child, the brother, sister, whoever? You mentioned to me you have somebody was in their early 30s.
Yes.
That you've got little kids all through that age range. What does that look like for them showing up? And for the most part, a lot of these are kids that have never been to camp, never had a camp
right.
for them, never, didn't have an option for summer camp. So it's a 2-day camp. And what does that look like for families, just kind of on a high level?
Right now, when the athlete arrives on Friday night, we make it just like it would be for during a basketball game. We want to announce the kid and let them run through a tunnel. We have cheerleaders and supporters and everybody at the camp cheering them on so they get to experience what it's like to run out and get your name called and run out. So that's how the camp starts. We run out through there in the excitement. Then after that, just like FCA camps, all FCA camps, we circle around the middle of the field and we have a young guy share the story of whatever the FCA camp is. And this year, our theme is 24/7. And so God is there 24/7. And so the lesson gets taught to a whole group then.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have stretching and all that, and they experience the stations together that night, and then that goes until about 7. Then we feed the kids, and we call them athletes, And the buddies that they're paired with, we call teammates. And so they share dinner together. While all this is going on, we like to highlight the parents as well. So we've got a local restaurant called Gina Bell's who has allowed us to allow these families to come over and have a dinner that night while their athletes participating in the camp. If mom and dad want to have a date night, they can do that. Take anybody over that they would like, have a dinner, be able to love on them a little bit, and show them, wow, their child or athlete gets to go through all our stations and learn about their abilities as well as the lesson. We also have a small group time that we call huddle time for FCA. And so these kids get to experience an FCA camp. They get to have these huddles. They get to talk deeper about the lesson and with a group after the stations are over.
Yeah. And for any single parents, it will be the meal that you don't have to clean up for anyone.
That's exactly
It'll be the most peaceful meal you probably have had in a while. And being able to connect, my wife and I for the last 2 years have gone out to a Windshape camp out in Rome for specifically that weekend is specifically for families who have someone in their family that they're a caretaker for with some sort of special need or disability, whatever. And just getting to talk with other parents who
That's exactly
understand your
for.
realm of life. Obviously, it's a gorgeous campus, it's a beautiful property, but the benefit and really the thing that we love most about it is every year, the 2 years we've been out, you make connections with people that you're like, we're going to be connected with this person for years to come. And then additionally, you find out resources that you didn't know existed for your kids or for your family. And to be able, the first year, we were having that dinner with, there was, I think, 3 other couples at our table having that dinner. And we're talking about this, like who's keeping your kids kind of thing. It's like, which is
little things that you don't think about.
If you have, I don't know if there's normal kids anymore, but if you have a kid or kids who are not physically or cognitively, disabled or impaired or whatever you want to call it, sometimes it's harder to find childcare and babysitters, especially if you're staying overnight or something like that. And so we were going around, and one of the couples at our table, they had found a program in the state of Georgia that provided respite funding for that. And we were sitting there having dinner, and we're like, what do you mean? Like, you're not paying a babysitter? And they're like, well, we're paying them, but we get reimbursed, up to a certain amount per year. And we're like, wait a minute. And so within a month of going back, and the crazy thing for us is the office location for where we were in Georgia was 3 miles from where we were living.
Oh my!
Had no idea it was there, none at all. My wife got the paperwork filled out. We were approved within like a month. Life changing,
exactly.
Life changing. And so this year as well, we've been able to share that. We shared that with one couple that we had come across just in our kind of normal life that had they were a young couple. Everything is so expensive. They don't get to do anything. And they've got a 3-year-old who's on the autism spectrum. And same thing. And they lived about the same distance away. They were 5 minutes from the office, had no idea. We told them about it, and they're like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And we're like, we're going to help you get some babysitting money so you can get some you time back in life. And
because how important that is.
Oh, and that came about simply from being at a dinner with other parents and other families that
open dream of this.
your world. and some of them have been in it for decades. Some of them, this is brand new and it's all overwhelming. And so have that community, like you mentioned earlier, and have a place where you don't feel like you need to make an excuse, or people don't get it, or people are going to look at you, strange. And we talked about, these kids are all athletes, but some of these kids have never been on a ball field. They've never played organized sports because of whatever their condition is. And so as moms and dads, like, if that's your kid, don't worry about it. You qualify. This is who this is for. And
this is a free camp.
This is free for the families.
Yes.
The dinner is free.
Everything's free.
So you're really just getting there.
All you got to do is sign up and be a part.
That's awesome. So
and that was Friday night for the date night. And then on Saturday, and that's something I've learned with my condition, is how important caretakers are.
Yeah.
And so on Saturday, we do the same thing again. We bring the kids out, introduce them, get them run through and all that. Do everything again, stations and all that. We even have one station that is similar to Vacation Bible School. So they could do arts and crafts and things, and the kinetic sand, sensory stuff that these kids love. While all that's going on Saturday at 10 o'clock, we then have again for the parents a thing for them set up. And Jack Murray, who I was talking about, went with me to Ohio the first time. He runs the portion of the parent section. And we do that in FCA because we want to be excellent at whatever we do. And so by having him just focus on that, he's got people to speak to these people that have family or children with disabilities. We also have a lady coming in named Teresa Bruce, and she is doing the kind of a notebook session for these parents to allow them to document and have in a folder already all the documentation, because a lot of churches are now seeing the benefits of this mission field. So to have this documentation right there, easy to get to, and you can share it if you want to, but you have your own notebook with your child's information in there. And so we're going to help with them on Saturday build that.
In the theme of camp, and we'll cover this at the very end. So for parents right now that are like, I don't want to wait till the end of this episode, how do I find out more information about this camp? What's the easiest way for them to find that out?
You can go on our website, which is gabroadriverfca.org.
Okay, gabroadriverfca.org.
And under our events tab, we have our sign up for the camp, and that's where volunteers and athletes can sign up, and that'll get you logged into wherever you need to go. All our information is on that website.
So this being the second year, is the camp typically around the same time every year? If people are listening to this, in the fall, like, do you have a target time frame or week of the calendar that you typically are going to try to do this?
I like doing spring for the one in Madison County for two reasons. One is the volunteer rate seems to be better, and weather in Georgia, we know, is all over the place, and I feel that if we wait till later in the summer, he will get
brutal.
us. And same thing with the fall.
You
just don't know with the weather, so we try spring. And we've got rain plan in place if it rains.
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Great.
So that's, again, why we used Madison County.
From last year, do you have just a best memory or just kind of a great story from camp or aftermath of camp of that every time you think of a camp like this, you think of this story or this family or whatever?
Yeah, and we had a young man. He was 30 years old. And so last year we had the age from 5 to 30.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up and hugged me at the end and said, please make the age bigger. I want to come do this again. And so I said, don't you ever let age be a thing. And so to make sure we've covered that, I took it up to 35 because I want everybody to experience this. This is so fun.
For your volunteers, this is probably life-changing for them.
It is. And you know, what we use is this ministry, so many opportunities, and there's so many ways to go from caretakers to the athletes or whatever. And so to be a part of that and experience it, it's next level for them.
So you had sent me the flyer, but you also sent me a link to a YouTube clip from. Is that on the website?
It's on it. That video is not on that website,
Okay.
but if you go to YouTube, type in GA Broad River FCA.
Okay.
Our videos come up, and so we have the highlight of last year.
Perfect.
As well as an explainer video. Tell a little bit about the camp and it'll let you see it.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do before the end of every episode is called the lightning round, which is a question that has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about.
I love that.
Just because I have read some pretty impactful books. I just shared the one earlier from the soap bubbles. Is there a book or a part of a book, and you can't say the Bible, that's too easy to answer for FCA, something else that you have read that was impactful to you that you have shared with other people or you would recommend other people read? Can be specific, it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about your faith components of this. It doesn't have to be about the special needs elements of this, but just anything in the book realm that you come across.
I'm gonna look up the title. My daughter got us into the Audible books, so with me writing and stuff, I use that. And there is a book. It's just titled Johnny. It's Joni. It's from Johnny and Friends.
Oh yeah.
That she started the ministry in. And so her autobiography takes place, I guess, or she wrote it in the early 70s. So, but just that book has been so inspirational. Just met a guy that is part of their ministry of Johnny and Friends through this. And so he turned me on this book. So Johnny is a great book.
The story of Johnny Erickson Tata.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Jason, thanks for your time. For people who want to reach out to you directly, ask more questions, get more information, something beyond the website, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Email is jmyers, MYERS, @fca.org.
Okay. Awesome. So, and for Broad River, it's BROAD.
That
River.
is correct.
Okay. For anybody who is wanting, usually Google or your phone will connect you or correct you if you're typing it in wrong or spelling it wrong.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. There you go. Well, Jason, thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for just as a parent of a child with special needs. Thank you for literally taking the ball and running with it.
So it's so exciting ministry.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful to be a part of it.
This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live.